Hey guys, Reginald here, and today I'm here to give you 30 weapons that I'm going to recommend for you next season to use. Now, this is not a build video, I just want to give you weapons to try out for now and then give you builds once the next season launches, because with the patch notes that just came out, I want to try out builds next season before I give you a full-on build video. I have a few ready to go that will not change whatsoever, but that is for next season. Anyway, let's start. In my inventory, I have 30 weapons here related to the seasonal artifact. The only exception here is Salvation's Grip, but I'll talk about why I have it here. So, let's start with Navigator. So, Navigator, it's really powerful. I mean very powerful. It's really strong. You shoot the target long enough, you get woven mail to yourself and your ally. You shoot a target long enough, they get severed. Now, in case you don't know, once you inflict sever on the target and you kill them, they turn into a tangle. What's going to happen is next season, when you pick up an Orb of Power, you're going to get unraveling rounds for your Navigator. Navigator, I think, is probably the best trace rifle, besides maybe Divinity or Age or Scepter. Like, it's going to be between one of those three. It really doesn't matter between the three which one you like most, because I like Navigator the most, personally. Now, for you fellas that have been wanting to try out a hand cannon in PvE, I have one on the list for you guys who want a hand cannon. Wardens Law. So, this season, cannons came back, and hand cannons came back very, very strong. Whenever I farmed for my Wardens Law, remember, you do not need this to be adept. The adept thing does not matter. The only thing that changes is mods and like a little bit of extra stats. You see it here. Warden's Law is an aggressive frame hand cannon that fires 2 bursts. So as give or take around the range of a 180 to 140 hand cannon. But it hits very hard. It's the hardest hitting hand cannon. The role I have really doesn't matter. It's just Frenzy and Enlightened Action. I got lucky with the range masterwork, and I use a magazine mod for the higher mag. My reasoning for doing so is you can either go for a reload speed perk, or you can use that on your arms, or you can go for a higher magazine and simply just have a higher total damage per magazine, which I think is useful for the 2 burst hand cannons, because you'll be able to burst down basically about any red bar with a mag. So, any hand cannon will work. Use a 180, use a 140, use either 120. They're all good. So, Conditional Finality. The reason why I bring it up is because it's farmable this week. Farm Root of Nightmares if you can. Good luck. I've gotten trash rolls on my Wilderflight when I've got them. So, wish me luck on my Wilderflight farming. But anyway, Conditional Finality, it has unstoppable functions. It works in barriers using the using the stasis part of the shot, where you can then reload and then fire another stasis shot to continue keeping the barrier champ frozen. Or you can use the unstoppable function, which is to freeze and or shatter and or ignite the unstoppable champ. This thing is very powerful. Its focus is versatility and total damage, with extremely high burst damage at the cost of you being right by the target. So very similar to swords and glaives. Believe me, this fits the slot. You use it with a machine gun or a GL or a rocket, you're cooking. Rufus Fury. Now, I've tried getting an adept one, but mine's for PvP, so I kind of don't like it. So I had to get mine crafted for PvE. Now, the reason why I bring up a raid weapon specifically is because next season they're trying out raid LFG on the 30th of November. So keep that in mind. This works on overload champions, and you can give it unraveling rounds because it's a stasis weapon. Not stasis, because it's a strand weapon. So because it's strand, it's reliable, and it's an overload weapon, you can craft it so you can have whatever one of the pie for Rufus Fury. Very good. I would definitely say top three in top three best auto rifles for the legendaries. Leto Vigil. I just got this one earlier in my farming attempts to get a Wilderflight. So while I didn't get a God rolled Wilderflight, I did get a God rolled Leto Vigil. So the perk set doesn't matter, but it is a stasis weapon, so it will fit the surge. I have Swashbuckler here, particularly because it's a sidearm, so melee kills will work with it. And then you have Headstone, right? And then Headstone's considered part of the sidearm, so Headstone do increase damage also. Minor spec. Again, the perk set doesn't really matter, but it works in barriers, and you can just farm Spire the Watcher easy. Like, easy. Now, for this next one, Wicked Implement. Wicked Implement is deceptively one of the best weapons in the entire game, and let me tell you why. It's a primary weapon with basically chill clip, with extra functionality. But it works on overload champions as well as unstoppable champions, as well as barrier champions, because it freezes them. But you have to be constantly shooting the target. So Wicked Implement is much better in a group of 3 than it is by itself. Ideally, you want to be careful when using Wicked Implement, because you have to be constantly shooting the target, such as, a champion, like an overload or an unstop, in order for it to be useful. And because you're constantly freezing and shattering, while it's decent, you're mostly going to be getting the mileage out of it, helping your teammates. Yes, it is good, but it's a primary weapon. Primary weapons are meant to be used with your specials and your heavies. This thing needs help. Ideally, because it's a stasis weapon, you're shooting with it continuously, you want an auto-loading holster, lasting impression rocket to use with this. If you have an auto-loading lasting impression rocket, it's going to do a lot of work for you. Wishender. We do not have very many options on the artifact in terms of barrier weapons. So, Wishender or Arbalist is coming back as another pick again. I like Wishender a lot. I'm a bow main in PvE. This is mostly why I like playing hard content, because hard content is where the weapons I like most using are the strongest. So, bows, scouts, on a certain level, certain hand cannons, right? How you play matters the most in hard content, which is why I like using Wishender to kill my enemies quickly. I always liked it before it got the readjustment, but now it's just straight up my favorite primary. Well, besides Vex Mythoplast. Traveler's Chosen. Not a whole lot of people will agree with my sidearm picks, so I'm going to give you individuals an option that probably all of you like. Traveler's Chosen is a subclass weapon. You have to get up close and personal with it to work. It's an exotic, so it has that 40% damage boost. So it'll work with Invis Hunter. Frankly, it works with any light-based build. Actually, it's not even a light-based build that it just works with, but it's Catalyst Osmosis. Switches the weapon type to the element that you're using. And then, surplus is, nasty, right? This thing is juiced, period. I never really use sidearms until the seasonal artifact lets them be usable, because I mostly use seasonal artifact weapons, so I don't have to think about which weapon to use, because I have what I need anyway. Quicksilver Storm. Good old Quicksilver Storm. You know what it does by now. You shoot the target, you fire nano rockets. You shoot it. If your nano rocket lands, you get a grenade. Once you fire the grenade and you get a kill with it, it spawns a tangle. When you get a kill with it, the tangle, it works with certain strand builds. And because of next season giving out unraveling rounds when you pick up an orb of power, you're going to be having a 5 or 6 weapon in one primary. This is one of the best weapons in the game. Everyone knows why. It's easy to use. And it's not the fact that the grenades themselves don't do so much. It's the fact that you fire so many grenades that it's so easy to get them back. Do not underestimate this one, fellas. It may be an SMG on crack, but it is indeed an SMG on crack. Wither Horde. I know. Wait, it's not part of the seasonal artifact? Why are you recommending it? There's a mod called Blast Radius, and I know a lot of people use Wither Horde anyway. So, my recommendation is people use Wither Horde for either ad clear or single target damage. You're going to still be continuing to do so, but now you're going to get an armor charge or 2 out of it. So just keep that one in mind. Wither Horde's going to be juiced for this season. For my next set of picks, let's start with good old Aramite. The reason why Aramite is here is because you have until final shape to focus farm it over in the lectern area in the Anthenium. This thing is probably my favorite solar special, or solar legendary special. I don't know why I should have to say a lot about it. You see the perks: Envious Assassin, Controlled Burst, Accelerated Coils. You know why I'm using this. It's disgusting, guys. I'm serious. Like, make that thing work, and it will serve you well. It has a total damage of over 1 million. That is nasty. It's reliable. It's easy to use. So remember, this is technically a FOMO alert. Like, get it now. Acacias Dejection. So the reason why I'm recommending a trace rifle on the list is because trace rifles are consistently really good in non-champion based content. The reason why I say they're good in non-champion based content is because they don't have the overload trace rifle mod, which is mostly why I care. The other thing is people like double special builds, and not always will they have options for champion interaction when they run double special builds. But Acacias Dejection in particular is a solar weapon, so it works with the solar surge, and you'll like it because if you're radiant, you can cause targets to get scorched when you hit them. If you have incandescent, you're going to be causing quite a lot of booms. It does not matter if it's adept or not. I am crazy and fucking insane for frankly going for adepts for the way I do. So don't repeat what I do because it's not all healthy behavior. Anyway. Collective Obligation. Collective Obligation is bar none one of my favorite weapons in the entire game. Straight up. It is top 3. I like using it just as much as Wicked Implement. And I like using it just as much as I like using Wishender. Those are like my 3 favorite weapons, mostly. Like Collective Obligation, I have that much enjoyment using it. And when Overload comes back, it's going to be even easier to proc Overload with it because you don't need to get suppression rounds in order to overload targets. Now you can just use it as an overload weapon, stun them, throw your suppression grenade on Titan, get your free 3 debuffs, shoot them, and then just start the frenzy. Like, it is nuts. Like, I'm surprised more people don't use it. Fellas, it is one of the most broken things to ever breathe. Like, very rarely do you ever hear me talk about a pulse rifle that is good. I only ever talk about 450 aggressive pulses because they have the most range. And I talk about Collective Obligation because it's nasty. I talk about 340s because while they're clunky, they hit hard. Like, I like pulses a lot. And they're okay. But Collective Obligation is one of the very few pulses that I genuinely like using. Now, for Revision 0, since I didn't go over that one, obviously, just let's wait until next season for something like Revision 0. But for Collective Obligation, it already works in Champions anyway, because suppression rounds, and it's going to work even better with Overload. Like, I would just run this over Revision 0 any day of the week. Mindbender. Now, the reason why I have a shotgun on the list is because, now remember, you do not need adepts and you don't need the specific shotgun I got. But you need a solar 1-2 punch shotgun for Banner of War Titan next season because of the surges. So, you want a solar 1-2 punch shotgun? This is it. I don't know if it's focusable at Zavala, but I'd probably check. Glaive. Synthoceps is getting a Glaive buff. The Glaives are now going to work by 2 times. It's going to give the Glaive a 2 times damage buff, 100%. So this means Glaive interactions are going to be even nastier. And it's going to level out the Banner of War nerf because they're going to work with Synthoceps anyway. And once Banner of War gets procced at level 1, it's going to be even easier to use. Now, for my judgment of Kelgaroth, because this is a specific Glaive, it's the only aggressive in the game right now. So I use Overflow, Close to Melee, and Minor Spec, and I use Ambush because I'm trying to get a kill with that and I'm trying to get Banner War going. Now, Glaives are not part of the seasonal artifact, but the only thing I have to say about them is in non-champion content, they are really good. And in Grandmaster content, Glaives with really good shield duration are going to work. Tyranny of Heaven. So, a lot of people have Last Wish by this point, because you probably bought Forsaken a long time ago, or you bought the Forsaken pack. There's Unstoppable Bow on the artifact. I'm going to recommend Tyranny of Heaven, because Tyranny of Heaven is one of my favorite bows ever. Now, while I'm at it, I'm going to go out of order for a second and say Prieston X. Fellas, you can focus Prieston X at Zavala. You don't need the Adept version for it. But Prieston X is a precision solar bow that also works with the surges of the season. So, get it. Like, fellas, it's really good. Dead Messenger. Oh boy, I bet no one ever saw this. Dead Messenger, I think, is one of the most busted add clear weapons in the game, bar none. I'm serious. It works with any light-based build. You have Demolitionist, Turnabout, you know, fundamentals. You can fire 3 waves on the ground, and you know it's disgusting. Like imagine a waveframe GL that works with any light element and can give you your grenade back, and it gives you a form of survivability. And something like Arc Titan, that's pretty good. Like, I'm serious, fellas. Try out Dead Messenger. You will not regret it. It is one of the best weapons I've ever used. And it still remains to be one of the best weapons I've ever used. Alright. Brinns Law. So, for Brinns Law, this one is the only arc weapon I'll include on the list because the point is we need an energy sidearm, and I don't really have any of those. I mostly have kinetic sidearms. So the one that I do have to recommend is going to be Brinns Law. By now, you've probably got the patterns for it because you heard about Volt Shot being really good. The combination I use is the age-old right hook, Volt Shot, Pugilist combo. Now, any solar sidearm will work, but that's the only energy sidearm that will work. So Devil's Ruin, you could probably just replace Brinns Law of Devil's Ruin here because that's a solar weapon, but that's also an exotic. So, you know, take your pick. But personally, I'm probably gonna be bringing Brinns Law in the GMs if I can make it work. Now, just to prove to you that you don't need an adept because a few of those showed up on the list, Acacias Dejection. Fellas, do Root of Nightmares. I recommended the adept for Acacias Dejection. Now I'm going to recommend the base version just to further solidify the point. Fellas, solar weapons are going to inflict Scorch and Ignition once you have Radiant. I'm telling you, do Root of Nightmares this week. If not, play Dares of Eternity and get that Trace Rifle. That one's also good, but I think Acacia's Dejection is a better Trace Rifle. For my heavy weapons, Carax's Distress. Now, if you're my friend Solar, you've heard me gushing about how this is the toilet cannon, hence the shader. Matter of fact, favorite. Now, you're either using this as an ad clear weapon, or you're going to be crazy and freaking insane like me, and you're going to use Frenzy and Field Prep. You get 24 shots. When Final Shape launches, you're probably going to have 30, 32, 36 shots. So a lot of ammo. You're going to have a lot of ammo with these things. 150 jails have the highest DPS amongst the heavy jails, while 120 GLs have the highest total damage amongst the GLs. If you're using something with explosive light, you're going to have the highest GL total damage as long as you can keep those total damage stacks going with explosive light. So if you're in times 6 or times 7 and you have 3 orbs or so to pick up, you're going to have the highest total damage amongst the GLs. The only thing I'm going to say here is I'm going to recommend Carax's here because you can farm Root of Nightmares, and fucking no one is going to do Trials of Osiris or Cataphract. Cataphract might be the best overall heavy jail in the game, bar none right now, besides maybe a couple of exotic jails. But that's a legendary weapon, and heavy exotic jails are heavy exotic jails. So if you're using Anarchy, it's because you're using Anarchy. However, both Carax's as well as Cataphract are I did that twice now. Strand weapons, so they will work with unraveling rounds. That is why I recommend a strand heavy jail to you. Eyes of Tomorrow. So this is going to sound weird, but follow me on this. This fires 6 rockets. Overload gets procced by you aiming at the target and doing sustained damage with it. Because Eyes of Tomorrow fires 6 rockets, what ends up happening is you'll more than likely proc Overload with just 1 rocket alone, whereas say with other rockets you may or may not have to just fire multiple in a row. Because Overload traditionally works by you having to shoot the target with sustained damage in order to keep the damage up. That's the only thing I really have to say about Eyes. Argent Ordnance is disgusting. Combine that with Adaptive Ordnance, and then you're going to get that free damage on the Overload champs, and you'll probably drop the champions quite easily with Eyes. The only thing I have to say is exotic rocket launchers work better in fire teams, and you're more than likely going to use an exotic rocket launcher if your teammates are mostly using Wishender or another champion-based exotic primary or special. So I'm giving you an option for the exotic rockets. For Galah Horn, I'm going to recommend Galah Horn for an entirely separate but more or less identical reason. So while Eyes of Tomorrow fires 6 rockets hyper aggressively at the target, Galah Horn is easy to use and it fires a rocket on the target, but Wolfpack rounds hopefully will work with Overload. But I'm going to recommend Galah Horn on the premise that it will work with Overload, and like Eyes of Tomorrow, it's a solar rocket. It gives your teammates Wolfpack rounds if they're using any non-exotic rocket launcher. It's traditionally going to be one of the best weapons in the game, as it always has been. Nothing else to add with Galah Horn. Tractor Cannon. The reason why I recommend Tractor Cannon is because Banner of War builds like using Tractor Cannon, and Banner of War is more or less unscathed. You just need some more kills to keep up the potency with it. And Tractor Cannon, works on overload champions. So, make of that what you will. It's really good. It's one of the best weapons in the game. I always love using Tractor Cannon when I can. So, believe me, fellas, it's nasty. Whisper. The reason why I'm going to put a sniper on the list is because Whisper of the Worm is going to get that sniper rifle buff, and it already has the highest total damage amongst every exotic weapon in the game. Like, out of all 113 exotic weapons right now, it is first place in total damage. Because it's going to get 15% extra damage, it's going to work with its exotic perk, Whispered Breathing, and it's going to go wild. The only thing I have to say is I'm putting it on the list mostly because it's a Solar Surge weapon, and I like Whisper, and I know a lot of other people also like Whisper. Winterbite. Alright, you had to see this coming. Because Banner War is more or less unscathed, all you need is some extra kills. Winterbite does extra damage with its melee. All you need is just ammo, which is easy to keep. And then because Banner War gives it 40% extra damage with the melees, it's going to be disgusting. And then once you have Synthoceps going, that's another 2 times on top of that. So when you stack it, the Winterbite damage increase with Banner of War, which is 40%, with the now 2 times of Synthoceps as of the next season, is going to be somewhere around as powerful as it was before the launch of Lightfall. So it's going to be back in meta status, but now Banner of War is allowing Winterbite to remain in meta status. The only thing I have to say is Banner of War heals you by letting you keep up the kills with the melee, so you have to be killing all the time with Winterbite, up close and personal, and it's your heavy weapon, in order to get that healing effect with Banner of War. It's effectively doubled. So, bit of a steep journey for that build, but believe me, it is going to be scary good. It is a stasis weapon, and a whole team of Winterbites can one-phase Uryut. So, Winterbite's going to be back on the menu. Lament. Like this season, Lament Lament is still strong. You can still bring it into Grandmasters. Next season, because Solar Surge is coming back still, you can still bring it into Grandmasters. Traditionally, Lament has the highest sustained burst damage of all swords. Worldline Zero absolutely has the best burst damage of all swords. However, Lament has the best sustained damage of all swords. So take a pick between those two. However, this one's a surge weapon. Also, this one works in barrier champions. And when you get kills, or when you damage a combatant, you get healing. And you get sword ammo for every other kill you get. Lament is made to be used up close and personal practically all the time. I like it. It's just I don't use it as much. I prefer Worldline Zero more, actually. Because I like killing champions all the time. However, do keep in mind that Lament has traditionally always been one of the best weapons. Alright, Salvation's Grip. The reason why this one on the list is it's the only exotic heavy GL on the list. Out of every grenade launcher in the game, the only exotics in the heavy slot that are stasis is this one. Also, this one works on unstoppable champions with the crystal function. And then it's going to get even stronger with the stasis rework in Final Shape. We'll talk about Salvation's Grip in Final Shape era because I want to see what the reworks of stasis are going to be with it first. Because what I say now is going to be completely irrelevant by Final Shape. Otherwise, the only thing else I have to say is not only does it work with surges, but it also works with blast radius. So, you're going to get a free armor charge by getting kills with Salvation's Grip. People don't know how the exotic perk works, so I'll just tell you. You can choose to charge the shot or not charge the shot. If you charge it and then release, you drop a bunch of stasis crystals. Firing at the target if they're frozen or slowed is a 30% damage increase. So it is a cataphract GL level increase in damage. But where say bait and switch is 35%, this one is 30%. Realistically, the best way to use Salvation's Grip on champions is to either be throwing a Dusk Field or to be throwing out a Silence and Squall. Otherwise, it's really hard to get that damage buff going with Salvation's Grip because you have to charge the last grenade and fire it, and then shoot the crystals, and then you can get the auto reload that way without having to reload. That is a lot of ammo. So, like, heavy jails traditionally it's like this. Heavy jails in the game have very high burst damage but very high burn rate. So your playstyle must be as aggressive as the GL you're using. People know the playstyle with heavy weapons varies from heavy weapon to heavy weapon, and the pattern with heavy grenade launchers is you have to be as aggressive as they are in order to keep up with the ammo requirement they need to kill everything in the room. So that's all I gotta say about Salvation's Grip. Pomera B. This was the only one I had in my vault because I didn't craft one yet. This one is Stasis. You can give it explosive light. It has auto-loading holster, right? Impact casing. It's a precision frame, so the rocket will land on the target. While it doesn't do as much damage as an adaptive frame or an aggressive frame, if you miss any adaptive or aggressive rockets, then tracking rockets are the best rocket in the game at that point. Once an adaptive rocket, high impact or aggressive, miss a rocket or two. Once that happens, these rockets have the highest total damage amongst the rockets. That's how it's always been. So that's all I really gotta say about Pomera B. It's stasis and it works, and it's gonna be an overload weapon. So have fun using it, fellas. Good ol' Leviathan's Breath. You know why I'm bringing it here. It's one of the easiest weapons in the game to use now. It is the best sustained burst damage weapon in the game. You don't reload with it in the same way that you reload a gun. You kind of just have fun with it. Because Unstoppable is always procced, it's going to have a 25% damage increase no matter the activity that you're playing. Always. All I have to say about Leviathan's Breath is I love this weapon. I loved it ever since it was good. I always loved it before it was good. It's just I never used it because it was not good. Used to, it was kind of just a primary weapon in the heavy slot. That's no longer good enough. Now it's a true heavy weapon of its caliber. Like, I truly do recommend this one to you guys, fellas. Anyway, that's all I really had to say. I'll talk about builds another day, but these are the 30 weapons I recommend. And, that's all I really have to say. My name is Reginald, and I hope you all have a good one. And, peace. Gonna